Welcome to the Indie KidLit podcast. Join Marty Dumas and Elena Page on their quest to help children's and middle grade authors find the right audience and sell more books.
Hi, and welcome to the Indie KidLit podcast. I'm Marty Dumas.
And I'm Elena Page. And today I get to do the intro. Yay. I just want to have a little moment because I've been palming it off to Marty for the last few interviews, but today's my turn. So bear with me. We have a very special guest. Today we're talking to an author. I know we haven't had an author for a few episodes, and we're lucky enough to have secured one with Nathaniel Wyckoff, who, I will just give you my spiel, was born and raised in the beautiful San Fernando Valley of Southern California, which sounds so divine, though I've never been, and from an early age was profoundly interested in reading, writing, storytelling, and of course listening to stories. And though he works in the technical field, he counts storytelling amongst his favourite of activities. Inspired by his children to write his first series, A Peretz Family Adventure, and they include Wyckoff, the Pirate Hunter, Wyckoff and the Treasures of Timna Valley, Wyckoff and the Secret of Accra Fortress, and he's just released his fourth book. I'm going to let him talk about it and tell you about the title. Welcome to the show, Nathaniel.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
How was that for my really dodgy introduction?
Oh, that wasn't dodgy at all.
Was that all right? Okay, good. I didn't want to leave anything out that was important, but your series looks like super exciting, really adventurous, lots of secrets. I feel like it's got a lot of information that kids would learn from. So tell us a bit about the series itself and how you got inspired to write it.
Okay, the series itself is basically about family. Now, I wanted to write a book about kids and also in the family. I didn't quite like the idea that the kids just run off and do everything by themselves, and there are no adults around at all. Kids like to have fun, so you have to let them have fun too. But it's nice to have some connection with the parents, right? So I made it, the family goes and has these adventures. Now, of course, because they're kids' books, you want to write with kids as the main characters. So, and yes, the kids do all the action, the kids do a lot of the problem solving, etc. The adults might step in now and then, but they're not totally absent. So one day I was driving my kids to school, and we had this whole thing going on where each day of the week, a different child got to choose which kind of story I told them during this drive to school. So I think I had 3 kids in the car at the time. I have 6 children.
Wow.
Yeah, the oldest is...
Wow, that's amazing.
That's a hat tip.
Yeah, thank you. So we've had to do all kinds of creative things getting them. And our school actually changed its location. It's now pretty close to our house, but there was one time when it took about 20 minutes to drive there. So I think I had 3 in the car at the time. And the youngest one who's in the car, he says he wants a story about a person with like 10 really huge, tall robots. So I said, okay. So I had to make it up on the fly. And I got, pretty skilled at doing that. I was making up stories about something on the fly, and I would just start talking and telling. And so I came up with this thing, which doesn't look much like Wyckoff the Pirate Hunter at all, really. But it was, this guy has these robots, and he's using them, and he's living on some weird planet, and he's using them to like crush up diamonds for him. And then something goes wrong with one of them, and it starts crushing up this thing, but then its tool isn't working, or it's not working, and it starts saying, "This thing doesn't crush. It is silly. This thing doesn't crush. I'll call it Willy." So they got to laugh out of that. The robot's saying that, and so, gosh, I made up this whole thing, and then like the next day, I continued the story because I just kept going and on. I was on such a roll that by the time I got to school, I wasn't nearly done with it. And then I remember in the morning thinking, what else can I have them do? Oh, yeah. And I was all preparing for this drive to school, and I drove, again, I continued it. So, gosh, I wanted to write. I wanted to get my stories out there in print for other kids. So I took this idea, okay, what if it was a child And what if, they had discovered something wrong with their own robots, but if it's a child, he's got to have parents, and let's have him have siblings, because my kids have siblings. They're growing up with several kids. They can relate to that. Okay, so then I figured, okay, what if there's something? Okay, so they have the robots, they're doing stuff, blah blah blah. It's boring. It's been done a million times. Something goes wrong with the robot, like in my story. So okay, something goes wrong with the robot, but there's something funny in it, and I don't think it would be too bad, okay, there was this I remembered seeing Star Wars when I was a kid, and there was this little droid, as they call them, with a little secret in it and all this. But what if they found something? What if it's like treasure map? And I don't remember how I added pirates to the whole thing, but it's called Wyckoff the Pirate Hunter because this boy named Wyckoff Pirates, and he's like the main character. He's the oldest of the kids, and he feels like he's responsible. And he's also a whiz kid, but not in a bad way. Like, I know, Marty, you write books about, a boy who's intelligent and he wants to learn things and do things. So this could also be an intelligent kid who's capable of a lot of things. So they discover this map in the robot. It's, so we have a yard, and our kids like to play it. I mean, we've often had balls and, things thrown onto the roofs and over fences and all this. So what if the Frisbee goes on the roof? Now, they don't want to climb up to get it, so they send a robot up to get it instead. But the boy didn't have permission because his parents didn't let him. But he just did it anyway because he figured yesterday they got to do it, so I can do it today too. Haha. Now, what about another character? He could be like the counter character, or they call him the foil character or something. He could say, I'm impatient with this. I don't like the robots that much anymore. I'm just going to throw a ball up there and get it down myself. Haha, it'll knock it down. But he misses, and it knocks the robot down instead. The robot falls down. Now they're all, they're, kind of nervous because, it's their parents, paid a lot of money for this robot, and now it's broken. And so, of course, the dad comes out and he's like upset. So the whiz kid, Wyckoff, decides he's going to save the day. He's going to talk really fast. Dad, you know what? I can fix it. I think I know how to fix it. Because, he's also been working on robots himself. He knows a thing or two about them. All right. The dad's like, said it, do it fast, Okay, so he starts futzing around with it, and boom, he hits something, and the robot projects an image onto the wall of a map. And they think, oh, well, what is this, a map? And they recognize it. Oh, it's somewhere in the desert. So I live in Southern California, not far from the desert. So, but maybe, let's go see what's in it. And, the mom's busy in the house, and take the kids out, keep them busy for the day. I've got stuff to do. Just do something with them. Okay. So
I love that you, like have the whole family. That's really, really clever. And, from what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, is like there's such a passion for your actual story. Like you're like right in there describing it. Like, do you use that passion when you market your stories? Like, because I find for me, like I sort of stick up a cover and go, here's what it's called, here's what it is. I do you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if in terms of your marketing adventure with this series, especially as it's expanded, do you find that actually describing the story, getting in there, really bringing your characters to life has helped you build an audience?
I think it has, yeah. I like to get into it. Really like to get into it. I mean, I tell my, okay, kids are getting older. They like to read their own stories. I used to tell them a lot more bedtime stories. I would really get into it. I remember, I do voices. I'd change my own inflections around and stuff like that. I remember one time carrying a baby around. He was our fourth, while telling the other kids a story in the same bedroom. And just, anyway, so in terms of marketing, yeah, I like
to a wider audience. Yeah, I bet your own kids love stories anyway.
Yes, definitely. Getting an audience. I like to. Okay, so first of all, I write my descriptions. I really like to put thought into them and try to make them exciting and imagine I'm telling a story. My book covers. So the cover is a marketing tool. We all know this. So I have found, and I was fortuitous. I found a graphic designer who sends out. She sent me a form. This is a document, and she's got a lot of questions and really have to think and put in a lot of detail, like to answer the questions. And so I run with it. Like I put in a lot of detail about the book, the plot, the characters, the settings and all this. And so I find myself getting into it and just really passionate about it, enthusiastic about it. So she puts together a cover, but it just captures like many elements of the story. So many things I describe. Like, can I show you the ones for my latest book? Like,
yeah, please, yeah, okay. Absolutely.
Wyckoff and the Jewel of Jamaica. So you can see there's a helicopter and there's an explosion and there's hang glider and there are kids running, and you've got the tropical kind of scene. You've got the beach scene. At the top, she's got these looks like a technical thing. Maybe they're bits like ones and zeros on a computer screen or something like that. It says a Parrot's Family Adventure on the top of it, and she just put together all these different elements, which I tried to describe. I wasn't really trying to be passionate. I just naturally came. I just started writing about it, and it just, I start getting on a roll, and I just start talking about something, and I'll just start. In terms of writing, it's hard to stop. It's hard.
So that's awesome. You're like you really are that natural storyteller, which is fantastic. So tell us about that fourth book. Like, I know, one of the reasons we reached out was you took a different approach to launching it than you did your others. It's also the fourth book in the series. So what was different about your approach this time around?
Okay, so I struggled.
Yeah,
I struggled for a long time. Like,
how long ago did you put the first one out, Nathaniel? How long ago did you put the first one out?
The first one out, the first version was actually more than 7 years ago. It was like late 2010. And then I didn't know much about the whole self-publishing thing at the time. I really didn't. And I know the industry itself wasn't as well developed, but there was still a lot more I could have known. I started with just the ebook edition, because a friend had told me you can just go into Amazon and you can just do this electronically and make an ebook out of it. And I thought, well, it's at least something I can do to start. Then only later I figured out that, I learned about CreateSpace, which is the Amazon's paperback division. So things, it was a journey. It was a process. One thing led to another. I made a really amateurish cover by myself. They had a cover creator, so I just took a toy treasure chest, believe it or not. I went to the park and I stuck this thing into the sand. And then I took out my cell phone, which was this crummy little flip phone, and I took a picture of it, and it looked fine to me, but it turned out it was a pretty low resolution, blurry picture.
I love that so much. So when did you move from your like wholehearted but definitely amateur efforts to put the book together into something that you would consider like more indie, more on the profesh side of the indie world?
So I started. I didn't know how to market this thing. I just started like emailing friends. I told people about it. I knew a friend who had like a bunch of people who used to send out information about stuff. So I told him, "Can you please tell them about my book?" And so he sent out something. Nate Wyckoff. People call me Nate for short because Nathaniel is a long name. Has written this book, and please see if you can, maybe you can buy it. And so I was like both encouraged by it, but also really discouraged by the just the failure to find people to read it. And a friend of mine who writes told me that maybe I could develop the characters a little bit more, rework some scenes, flesh some things out more. She said my plot and humor were pretty good as starting points. I could do more with it. I knew the cover was really lousy, so I wanted to do something about that too. But it took a while. I was kind of proud, a little bit stubborn, a little bit obstinate, and just, I was kind of lacking in confidence too. I was like thinking, how am I going to do this? So eventually it was several years actually. Because I went through some emotional stuff about the whole process. There was times when I was trying to push it, but really struggling to know how. I mean, gosh, you just Googling, marketing books and just finding, oh, some person over here made this thing called New Book Journal or something like that. And just then you find, oh, it's only his low hit blog, and he sends it to just very few people, and on and on. So, okay, I decided, you know what? This was like 2014. I just said, okay, I want to do this. I couldn't bear the fact that my book would just go nowhere. And I also wrote it with the intent of a sequel. I even ended it in a way that we would call a cliffhanger. I wanted people to read it and then want to read the next story and find out what goes on. So first I had to work out what goes on. So I found sometimes I would just be thinking, I just find myself thinking, what if this happened? What if, this bad guy does something bad to the other bad guy? And
so that was back
and Wyckoff and his brothers stumble on it. It was like in 13, actually. I was still already thinking about this.
Okay.
But it was like, took me a long time. 2014, I decided, okay, let me do this. It was just late 2014. I decided, okay, first of all, the cover is awful. Let me do something about that. I went to the cover creator in Create Space. They said, you can put an image there. Okay, so I searched online for a photo service. There are these royalty-free stock photo services. So I bought a high-resolution picture of like a scene on a table with like some, maybe telescope and some other like sort of old-fashioned exploration things on it. Didn't quite say pirate hunter, but at least it was a lot better than just a blurry picture of a toy treasure chest in the sand. Okay. I also took my friend's advice seriously. I went over the book. I edited some things. I was ashamed of myself for some of the things I had, missing words and sentences and stuff like that. I can't believe I published it this way. I had the kids, calling their parents by the Hebrew words Abba and Ima, which is mother and father. They're Jewish kids, and I did that mostly just naturally because I have Jewish kids and I really, relate them, but without explaining what that meant. I was thinking, oh my gosh, how are people going to understand this? So I did a lot of things those kinds of things. And I also decided, okay, I'm going to flesh out things. I'm going to give more of the backstory of Wyckoff, who he is, what kind of person he is, a little bit more about what the father does.
Right. So you spruced it up. So you did a revision on it. Yeah. And so then that book came out when at the end of 2014, or did it take you until 2015 to get that done?
It was until 2015. So it was early in the year 2015.
Right. I think that was around the time that I met you. Was not too long after that one had come out. I think, like 2015, somewhere in there. And so then between then and now, you have published a number of them. Have you been growing your mailing list the whole time?
Yes. Now, most of that growth has been within the past year. I knew about the idea of getting a mailing list. This was actually from an author named John Locke. I wasn't really interested in reading his novels, but he had a book out called How I Sold 1 Million eBooks in 10 months or something like that, or 5 months or something like that. So
that's
I thought,
pretty
okay, this guy knows what he's doing. So this guy is, I say it only positively, a beast. He's putting out a book every 2 months, sometimes 2 in a month. Sometimes, I'm on his mailing list, and he's just over and over. I can't keep track. He's dozens of books in just a few years. So I read that book in 2011. I was trying to think how can I market a book? So he had this idea. He gave me the idea of coming up with a mailing list, but he was doing things like use Twitter and all this. And I sort of tried that and stumbled on it, and it just didn't work very well. But I took Nick Stephenson's course, and that's how I met you through the course, I believe.
Your first 10,000 readers.
Your first 10,000 readers, right? So
Nick should totally be paying us money for that, by the way.
I know.
But it's cool. It's cool. We have no affiliate fees from that. So it's good.
So and he's talking about things like, give away a free book as a magnet to attract readers. Now, my problem was I hadn't written that many books. You've got to write more than one, as I thought, to get away for free. There were other podcasters who talked about this, Joanna Penn, and anyway. Most of them seem to be British and they're all friends. So interesting.
Don't worry, I have no friends here in Australia at all who are writers.
Okay.
It's all good.
Oh, writers. No, you're the only writer in
I'm the only one in the whole of Australia.
the whole
I'm convinced.
continent. The impressive bookshelf we got back there. You're quite prolific.
It is an
though, I must
impressive.
say.
It is an impressive bookshelf. I haven't read them all. Just to digress. And I apologise for my ka-ching noise earlier. That was just me making money on Amazon. So I just thought I'd mention.
It's okay. Greatly encouraged.
So sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I'm dying to know, and I'm conscious of the time, because Marty is the timekeeper, and she's watching that clock. Don't you let her fool you. She will say, time's up when you least expect it. She always does that to me. I'm dying to know, and I loved hearing your, like, organic development. It's fabulous because it is the real journey, like even those moments where you said, the confidence and even feeling ashamed about, leaving out what, like, I think sometimes we don't talk about that stuff because we see everybody with their polished, beautiful products.
And it's easy to forget that most people started there, so like that's a great reminder. Like we were all there at one point with a mailing list with 2 people on it and like nobody yet who wanted to buy our book. So like if that's where you are.
I remember when I had like 5 and I went up to 6 and whoa, I was jumping for joy. I remember when I had like 15, I was thinking, I'm like, how do you get 10,000? 10,000? I got 15.
Right. So Nick's course worked some for you, but I think that recently you've had some more success, like that's like stuff that worked better for you.
Definitely.
With this.
So here's what happened. I decided, okay, I need to write more books. I came up with another idea. This was like, okay, so I put together some concepts about what the characters are going to do, for my sequel. This was 2015. My plan was twofold, to start to put out my next book out there and quickly put out a sequel too. Okay, so what could I do? I found out that this was in real life. Archaeologists had uncovered what they thought were the old copper mines called King Solomon's Mines. And I was thinking, wow, there was a story called King Solomon's Mines, but no, they that was kind of speculative. They really found it in real life. What could we do with this? What if some criminals want to rob these mines? Or whatever it is. Okay. So yeah, I put together these ideas, okay, so, the bad guy who survived from the book 1 into book 2 is going to be there. And this, the other guy who was like a mob boss who hired him is going to be there too. He'll get some information out of him. And anyway, the kids will stumble on it because they'll be doing something. So, okay. So it was located in a place called Timna Valley. That's an area in the desert, the south of Israel, where these copper mines were discovered. And so I decided, let's place a lot of the action over there. I'll have the kids starting out by messing around with a robot again, but quickly they're gonna move to doing something else. I put in a new character who was this weird bully whom I used to tell the kids stories about. I made up a guy named Plavarto, and that's just a made up word I made for this bully boy who's got a big dog and tries to scare people with it. But the dog is also cowardly. He's afraid of doorbells, and anyway, so. Poof,
so your storytelling ability really changed. Show us the cover.
Oh yeah, sure. Wyckoff and the Treasures of Timna Valley.
And the Treasures of Timna. So your storytelling ability, I can hear, from what you're saying, is really started to develop. As you started to get more confidence with writing the second book and the third book, and now the fourth book. You've evolved as a storyteller.
Sure, I've evolved.
But how did you evolve in terms of marketing them? So. What I was going to say before was,
go ahead.
Tell me about book 4 and how you launched it.
So I had an email list now of a few hundred people. Now, how did I do that? Book 1. Well, once I had 3 books out there, I felt confident enough to offer book 1 for free in electronic form on InstaFreebie. So I had people steadily signing up for it. I did a couple of giveaways too. This was good. This increased it, significantly in a short period of time. Now with several hundred people, I have book 4 out. I read a book by Chandler Bolt. He's like the one American I know who gives these kinds of courses. And he talks about the writing process itself, and he also talks about publicizing it. That's what helped me. The parts about publicizing it. You engage the audience from the start. So what you do is, let's say you want a title. Now, the title, I came up with the title myself. I thought it was pretty good. Fine. The cover. So I went to my graphic designer. I told her what I told her. She came up with the cover that I showed you. There were some elements in it that, of course, I like to consult with my wife about it because she's like really sharp on these things, and she's like brutally honest. She'll tell me exactly what works, what doesn't work, straight. So she says, take out this and this. Okay, so it went back to my artist, said, can you please take out this and this? Let's see how it looks. Fine. So now I had two covers, two versions. I put them up on Facebook, and I asked people, which cover do you like best? Vote on it. Came back after about a week, and it turned out like I had about 26 votes. The current cover, one edged out the other one by about 2 votes. It's 14-12. I said, okay, we're going to stick with this cover. Now people are engaged. They're involved in the process. They know you're coming out with a book soon. They feel part of it. They feel like they have an ownership of it. Another thing was, okay, so read through it. He says, when you're revising the book, you read through it verbally. You don't just read it, but you actually whisper, or if you're alone, you can, aloud read it. So this helped me a little bit hear how it would sound to other people. What else? He says, done is better than perfect. So you don't want to live with this fear that your book is never good enough, because then you'll never publish it. So you edit it, at a certain point, you just have to let up. Who cares if there's a dangling participle somewhere? Who cares if I missed a comma? Just enough, edit it, publish it. Now, social media posts can be helpful as well. When you're continuing the process, you have your cover competition. You share the results of the cover competition. You say, thanks everybody who voted. Looks like you guys picked this one. So now people think, okay, I picked the cover. So I feel like I'm part of this process. I want, the author and I are friends in a sense, or at least we're acquaintances. Or, I have something to do with this person. You go to launch day. You tell people, okay, I'm launching the book now, and you announce that. Then you announce thank you to everybody who helped this launch, make it successful. Now, you also need to get people involved, recruit them to join your launch team. So you have a team of people who will agree to review your book in exchange for a free copy, and they'll post the review on launch day itself or during that week. So you tell them, okay, so Nick's course, talks about this briefly. Another person I'm learning from is Monica Lionel. So I've learned from various people. That's one way I've evolved as a marketer. I'm just picking up more of these strategies. I'm not finished learning how to implement them, but I'm getting better at it. She says, you write out a story. You tell a story in 4 emails to your list. Now, it helps to have hundreds of people on the list by now. So you start with what's called the orphan phase. So I wanted to be a storyteller. I decided to put together book 1, but I didn't quite know what to do next. Then I went to the wanderer phase, I'm wandering around looking for, how do I do a new series? Found out this news, I can publish another one. But I'm still feel stuck, because how do you turn that into many, many books? I don't know what to do. So then, the 3rd book, okay, archaeology worked the first time, so let's have more archaeology. In fact, there are lots of things people know, and many, many things people don't know, despite all the knowledge that's out there and people can access. A lot of people don't know things, so you can go and find, if I can go and find hidden or secret things and bring them to people's attention, they'll do that. So I describe that in my email. I tell them, look, and I have another thing. By the way, I'm teasing them all along with all these emails and saying, I have something coming up in a few days. 1 email goes out per day. So, coming up in just a couple of days, as I promised you, I'm going to offer you something. Then you sneak in, if you're willing to help me out just a little bit. So they figure, okay, you're giving me all this. Now I have this trust relationship. I know this guy. I like him. I like what he has to say. He seems personable, friendly, approachable, and all that. And now I trust him to give me something of value. So sure, I'll help him, because I know I'm trusting him to give me something of value. My 4th email, I tell them, okay, now this is what's called the martyr phase. This is called the hero's journey, and basically every story involving a protagonist has this format. So now as the martyr, doesn't mean you literally are willing to die or you do die. It means you're willing to just put up with anything and keep going. Nothing is in your way. You're just going to do this. Now you recruit them. You say, okay, and now they've seen you've got a lot of enthusiasm for it. You're excited about it. You've got something. You've projected that enthusiasm to other people. So now they'll be willing to sign up for you. So I got a number of people from my email list to sign up. I also participate somewhat in a Google group for writers, and most of them are writing for like short story magazines and things like that. I don't really do a lot of that, but I've been able to offer people help sometimes and ask questions for advice and things like that. So I asked them, does somebody want to have a free copy of my new book if you'll agree to review it for me? Okay. As Chandler Bolt recommends, you can ask them, will you please also, because so it says verified purchase, agree to buy the copy for 99 cents. So I think 99 cents doesn't sound like a lot. It's basically free for most people. So some of them will, some of them won't. And if they don't, it's okay. But at least you've got a review there. You may have a verified purchase review. I also happened to ask just a friend of mine who's, not necessarily on my lists, but I mean, he joined the list. So I had a separate list for this book for reviews. I sent them some emails. I sent them some reminders. I gave them about 2 weeks to read the book so they have time to put together a little review. So
how many people did you get in the end? How many people did you get on your list?
In the end, about 14.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's
more than what you had.
Yeah. Yeah, so only about 5 of them actually ended up writing reviews. It's kind of crazy, but I'm still, I don't know I've followed up with some of them and they've kind of said, well, I could do it later. I don't know when I got to it, but okay.
I think
I've got 5.
pretty normal stats. I think that's pretty normal stats in terms of, like, the bigger your list, but there's only ever going to be that percentage that really follow through.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Between a third and a half, I think, is probably what you can expect. So you're doing great.
Yeah. And so people bought it. I mean, I got about, what's funny was on the launch day, I looked up and the book was already ranked. And I was wondering, how did that happen? Somebody bought it the day before, which was interesting. Okay. So he tells you, don't upload the book on launch day. Give yourself a few days ahead of time. He's got this whole scheme with like starting out free and stuff. I wasn't really into that. I just kind of wanted to just get it out there. Start it with a price, which is okay. Some things to put in the description also. This is a good marketing tool. You started at 99 cents. You tell people in the description, this price will only last for about a week. So, on such and such a date, I'll be raising the price by $1.
In the actual description, really?
Yes, at the top of the description of the book.
I've not heard that one before. Oh, there you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also he says, put a call to action at the bottom. So he says, put something like, tell people, scroll up to the top and click buy so that and grab this great book.
I have seen that. I have seen that on some of them. Like there's another one, I think, I can't remember his name now, but a different author who writes adult. But I noticed like he had, he was talking to his audience, like through the description, kind of. And I thought, that's kind of cool. Would that roll in with kids' books? Like, but he had the same thing, exactly what you just said. Scroll to the top. He also had like an interview with the author. So, and I've seen a few people do this, an interview with the author under the description, like where he had, like, why is this book more entertaining than other books? Or, like, but I suppose the concept for me, what's interesting is this actually almost like thinking of your book description as another form of it's almost like a bit interactive.
Right,
Whereas
right.
I think we tend to think, well, here's the book, here's what it is. I'm not actually talking to anybody. It might be something to play around with. So you did that as well with your description. Did you actually do some of that stuff?
Not really. I sort of
Did
just
you feel it was a bit spammy or something? Is that what put you off?
No, I just didn't think of it. There's so many ideas floating around, and I just I'm still learning. So
yeah,
I've seen various person do this, various person do that, and sort of I wanted to go by Chandler Bolt's book because I know he's done it really successfully.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything about doing that, and I didn't really want to veer too much off of his script, but I I'm open to doing that, possibly in future books, put in an interview or something like that.
But did you put the other thing that you said, like to ask them to buy the book at 99 cents and then that it would be going up? Did you do that on your book description?
I did that, yes. That was a couple of book description. Yeah. So I actually had a problem with this though, because for some reason the KDP had a technical glitch and the price didn't actually go up like the next day. And I was, kind of disappointed and a little suspicious of what's going on. And a day later, it's still at 99 cents. And I looked in my KDP dashboard and it said the price was at $1.99. So why was it not showing up that way? And, I emailed them. They said, oh, okay, we'll have to work on it. I'll get the technical team to look into it. And, it took a while and then I had to remind them again. And anyway, the whole thing took 10 days. So for 10 days, it was saying, it had this message, price is going to go up on, Sunday the 25th. But it was like, still, the price hadn't gone up.
Yeah. Okay. But again, these are some of the
so that was,
things.
Wasn't the best experience. Okay, so, but you know what? A week later, I did raise it. Well, actually, then it was like on schedule to be raised a few days later. So I did raise it. It worked. So it went up to $2.99, and then a week later, $3.99. That's where I want to keep it right now. And I just, each time I put in something in the description saying the price will go up in about 1 week, and I put the date there. Those price increases actually worked on time.
So it sounds like a lot of the techniques that you got from Chandler Bolt and Monica Leonel were about really engaging with your audience, like really making friends with, really connecting with people. So yes. I'm curious about what the results were from that. Like, did you find people maybe responding to your emails more? Did you like people who were on your Facebook, like traveling over to your email list, or like what happened as a result of like your efforts from that?
Yeah, so a little bit of that. I mean, not many, like a couple people replied to my emails. I don't get a lot of replies to my emails yet. And like, I would say, yeah, people like, just a couple of people have been responding to my emails. It's not a lot of people yet, but I think that as I continue to grow, I'll get more of that. See, I'm looking for ways to engage them more. So like telling more stories, emailing them more often. Used to be I wasn't emailing them much at all, like maybe a month or two, and I was wondering. I've wondered, what do I say? I'm between books. I don't have anything to announce big. But I've noticed a couple of others whose email list I'm on will tell stories. Like one children's author sent out an email yesterday about horseback riding, and she's saying, her kids are on vacation from school, and she took them horseback riding and all this. There wasn't a word about her books in it, and so I'm thinking, okay, that's kind of cute. Or sometimes she'll put a little tale about her little description of what she's doing with her kids, and then she'll put like an excerpt from one of her books. And I'm thinking that's a good idea too. So you're talking to someone who hasn't mastered any of this stuff yet, but I'm learning. And I've got some good ideas that I'd like to start implementing soon.
But you've had a big difference, right? So like,
sure.
You've sold a lot more copies of your book 4 than you did in the same time period for your book 1, I think, which is
so that was an initial
unusual.
Burst, it was like 7 copies in one day, and like a couple copies in the next day, which for me that's a lot. But it was enough, and it was in a pretty narrow category. So within that category, which was called children's multi-generational families, it like quickly rose, and it rose so quickly that Amazon gave me a little orange ribbon and said #1 new release in this category. Now, it's not the biggest category and something most well-known category, but it's something. It shows that there's action. Now, I just want to warn you though, that was an initial burst followed by like very little. So
do you know, like I hear you on that, but like there's some authors that like I stay in touch with, and I'll hear from them like, oh, I turned off my advertising and my sales went back to like a few, like, and so I think with books, it does take a concerted effort. Like I know there is, I think,
Sure.
once you make it to 10,000 or something, it takes off. But at the same time, it's.
I have to move this computer to plug it in somewhere. But
yeah, you keep walking. Yeah, so it can take that. You got to stay on top of it. You got to stay on top of it. So. I don't know. I'm just saying this, but Marty could have a completely different opinion, and I'd love to hear it if you do, Marty. But I wonder with like kids' books, obviously, if you had like a huge launch, it might be enough to set it off and really make it fly forever. But I think maybe business books, or like I should probably say nonfiction, might have a longer tail from having had a good launch. I don't know. Do you think that's wrong, Marty? Or can you get a long tail from having had a fantastic launch in kids' books?
So I think that you can. So we're obviously talking from my like very, very limited experience, but
Yeah, sure.
I think that you can set yourself up for having a good long tail.
Okay.
Even
in kids'
I think
books?
is a different. I don't know that it necessarily means having like a huge day one. Like I think
Right.
that part of like having a good long tail is a lot of the things that Nathaniel was doing, like trying to make sure that you get a sufficient number of reviews to look legit within the first few days, making sure that there definitely are sales and traffic on your book so that you're getting a sales history, so that your also bots get populated, like all the things that make your book look legitimate. Now, does that mean, like, I don't know that I would necessarily call that like having a huge launch, like you would launch a business book, because those, like if you're trying to launch a business book, you're trying to launch it high enough that either you hit a list or that you are hitting the top of an Amazon category, but people are searching for a need in an Amazon category. And so like if you need a book that teaches you to write ASCII code, I don't know if people even do that anymore, but if you look it up on Amazon, then you're probably going to pick one of the top 2 or 3 things that come up, but you like specifically asked it a question and then it gave you an answer, right? So then I feel like that has a different value for business books, whereas by contrast with ASCII code, which I don't even know if people use anymore, I doubt it.
Right.
I do think that like children's books that sell continually can sell for 30 years. So then that's a whole different kind of
that's
long
a whole
tail.
Yeah. It's just that I find like with I've got one nonfiction and like it had a good launch, and it's like I hardly ever look at it. Like that's how it feels. Like I do have advertising for it set up, but I just like let it roll, and it just continues to chug along at that same level continuously. Now I could raise that level, by putting more effort in it. But what I find is with the kids' books, this is my experience only, like I might have a great launch and then it drops off if I don't like constantly feed that beast on some level. Now I agree with you, it probably does have a longer life, in terms of 30, 40 years. That's just been my experience, but that's only with the sort of books that I write.
Well, but I guess that's what you were, I'm sorry, Nathaniel, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I would just want to say to Elena's point, I would tend to agree because, my first book, Wyckoff the Pirate Hunter, was like, it was out there. I actually had the cover that I have now is was designed by my graphic designer. It's like the 3rd cover, not that my amateurish one. It's not even the new one with a high-res photo. It's her artwork, and it's gotten some more attention. But really, sales started picking up when I started advertising it. I started with Amazon ads. I learned how to do them, and I, tested them. Started a few months ago, maybe it was like September timeframe. I started getting, so I'd get like, it was interesting. I was getting like 6 paperback sales in a month, and so the next month about 9 or so, and then the next month there were more. December was more than that, all because I was advertising it on Amazon. Now January things like just dropped off again. But and have like gone down. But I'm just saying advertising was what pushed some sales. And I think you do need to continue to feed that beast, because you can't just rely on one launch with a very, very long tail with these kids' books.
Right. But which is like, so the feeding the beast, I think, comes from the methodology that you are trying to work out between Chandler Bolt and Monica Leonel, the like connecting with people, because particularly with children's books. When you come across a children's book that you like, you recommend it to 1,000 people, right?
Sure,
I mean, I say that all the time. I can't tell you how many copies of Knuffle Bunny I have bought people. It's an amazing book. I absolutely adore it. I mean, it's a lot of things, and I pass that on. So, like, you're trying to like super connect with your audience in that launch period is the beast that you're feeding for the launch, and getting people connected and excited, a core group of people who then keep talking and hopefully keep the ripples going through. So then it wouldn't necessarily need to be advertising. So like my middle grade fantasy that came out recently is mostly being pushed along by like people on Instagram, right? So then it's like randomly people say a thing on Instagram, and then like it like pushes it a little further. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that's not the same as although advertising, obviously I think it does the same thing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be advertising or advertising alone.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
It's something I want to do. I mean, sort of a goal that I have. I've kind of been inspired to this goal by learning from Monica Lionel, from these other authors who are sending stuff about, it doesn't have to be my kids' stories, or it could be, but sending stuff about, their lives, or putting out a question and asking people for an answer. How do you, like, what was the question she asked? She asked a question, like, if people ask people to answer it. So I figured, what if, like, I also want to branch out into writing books for older kids. My kids ages are creeping up. So maybe if I write books for older kids, it's like a stretch for me out of my comfort zone. So I wrote this whole thing about stretching beyond one's comfort zone. I had to take a picture of myself. I had my wife take a picture of me playing my accordion with the bellows stretched out. I put this into an email, and I asked people a question. Well, how about you? Do you have you had a time when you had to stretch beyond your comfort zone, whether to help somebody or to accomplish something, etc.? Okay, so one person replied. Okay, so there you go. Okay, I got a reply.
So, but that's actually a good thing, though. That's like, if you are not used to getting replies to your email, like, then that means that email is more engaging than the ones previous. So then you've got a thing to start with that can help you like figure out, okay, what was the nugget in this one that really made people connect? Yeah,
and then I can ask. It's just regular. I did send an email telling people, okay, about a cross promo that I was doing just recently. But then also with the second half of it, I told the people, I want to thank everybody who made the launch week successful. Here's a picture. I put a screenshot of that book with the orange ribbon on it. I told them
for the orange tag.
Yeah, it was, that's a prize photo, right? There you go. And then I'm thinking I want to tell them another story. I could tell them, because I'm learning from other authors who are doing this for the children's books. I've just recently discovered that this particular author, her name is Taylor Branton, is doing this. I said, that's a really good idea. I can learn from her. So I want to give out, I had this idea to tell people, okay, I took my kids to a place that I didn't really know much about, but you know what? You've got these exotic locations you'd like to visit. People like to go far away to find something fun to do or interesting to do. But you might have something adventurous thing right in your own backyard. For example, here in Los Angeles, California, we have the Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum. So we had driven past this many times and seen it many times without entering it. One day I took my kids there and we saw some oddities. I can describe them. I can put some cool photos that I took from that place into my email. Then I can ask them, how about you? Have you ever discovered something really, interesting or fun or exciting where you didn't think where you weren't expecting it, or where, without having to travel far, but something you didn't realize was right, in your location where you are.
So that's one that you're planning, Nathaniel?
I'm planning to write that one in a few days.
Yeah.
So I think that sounds engaging, because if I received that, I would also want to tell the person who sent it, oh yeah, I had a similar thing happen to me when I was, I was in town and I found something I didn't know was there, and wow, what a great discovery that was. I just found this.
Yeah. So, well, you have to keep us posted on like how that actually pans out,
Sure.
and if you feel like sharing a list of those that you come up with people, I'm sure we could figure out a way to put that in the show notes. That would be pretty cool. We
Okay.
are running out of time.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that was a yes. Did you catch that, Ellen?
Yeah.
That was a yes. That was my
I just
enthusiastic,
wanted to make sure that was like clear
over
and also like
hyperactive yes.
noted.
Okay.
On the record. We are running out of time, so I want to make sure that if there are any more marketing questions that Elena wanted to get in, that we have a minute to be able to catch them.
No, I think I'm done because I asked so many at the beginning that I'm content.
Okay. Well, then I will ask the last question.
Yes.
I know, right? So then, you said in the beginning, not way in the beginning, but when you were first starting to talk about marketing and what you read from Chandler Bolton, the pieces of his that you were trying to put into practice, that you were engaging with your audience on Facebook. So I have a couple of questions around that. Do you have a Facebook author page?
Yeah, so I have the Facebook author page, but the page itself doesn't really get a lot of action. It's funny, like I think I put the same question about the covers on my general page, just hoping that maybe some people I know would be interested. And then I've also put it on the Facebook author page, but I didn't get any responses from the Facebook author page. I got responses just from the general page. So
okay,
I'm not an expert on how, I'm not the Facebook expert.
Yeah. So
yeah.
the people who are on your general Facebook page, are they your friends and family, or are they people who have kind of like hooked onto you from your books, or is it a combination, you think?
So a combination. I mean, some are friends and family, some are people just kind of got acquainted to me because like the friends of friends, or some people through the, I mean, I'm a member of several Facebook groups. This is basically my main use of Facebook for like author marketing and resources. This was another step in my evolution as a marketer, just connecting with other people through these groups. Sometimes, one other person and I will converse for a while, and then I'll say, I can add this person as a friend, and just just another connection, and more of an acquaintance, in realistic terms than a friend, but still you can
like a connection, like networking.
Sure,
it's doing other networking. I mean,
one of the people who voted for one of the covers is actually a guy who wrote a book about Amazon ads, and he has a group of his own on Facebook for people who are reading his book, learning how to do it, learning how to test the ads and keep track of the results and all that. And I was a little surprised, like he voted on my book cover. So
like, talking about Brian Meeks.
Brian Meeks,
cool.
So okay,
wait. So no, I'm still on this bit. So this is really interesting to me because I know lots of people, and some of them are people that I know that who post things on their regular Facebook page and don't really have any engagement on their regular Facebook page. Their friends and family kind of ignore it because honestly, because their friends and family are not actually their target audience, like people who would actually be interested in the book. So then I am curious to know whether or not you think that there is some crossover between the people that and people who would actually be like the actual audience for your book, not in the way that we all hope that everyone will love our book, but like the actual intended audience for the book.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit. I wouldn't say there's a huge amount of crossover. I don't know that everybody who voted on the book cover then followed up and actually read the book. I mean, I know that I get the most engagement if I say like, I successfully got past this hurdle in my book. We're on the track. I'm going to be publishing it soon. I get people giving a lot of likes and all that. Some of them are not parents, so I know they're not going to be that interested in the kid's book. Small number have told me, I'm looking forward to this new book, etc. But I'd say there's a little bit of crossover. I think some people just sort of want to cheer you on, and they want to see that you've succeeded at something.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty engaging kind of post. I think when people just like take a picture
want to
of the
support
salad
you
and say, like, look at this great salad I made, and it's a little bit less.
Sometimes you're hungry and that salad
I just did
delicious.
something. Yeah,
Don't knock
right,
the
right.
salad post because like that's sometimes an important part of my day. So I think for me, the thing that I'm like really wondering, because you really do have a clear vision for who the book is for, right? So you are looking for families that value family, right? Families that want to be. All of my stories have parents present because I think that that's like that it's a really typical thing for middle grade and even for chapter books sometimes for the parents to be absent for one reason or another, and I've always found that disconcerting as a child, and so then as an adult I try very hard not to write stories that rely on the parents needing to be gone in order for the story to happen, dead or missing or whatever. So but it sounds like you have like a really solid like emphasis on family, a solid emphasis on children who are smart, and then also like you've got like, I'm going to say really cool, but like for you, probably extraordinary bits of like Jewish culture in your story, right? So then I'm wondering, like, I was wondering if you thought that there was maybe a crossover in those things and that was maybe a part of how you were engaging with the people who were on your Facebook page, like being like, hey, here are the things about me that are in this book. And you're friends with me, so maybe you have some of these things. But it sounds like you're more going for the general approach.
Yeah, so you've sort of given me some ideas. I mean, I'm totally serious because
come over to Melbourne, Nathaniel, because we have like this huge Jewish community, and I'm just like thinking, one afternoon with them, we could sell you a few million. Just in Melbourne alone.
What?
Over the million first, and then I'll let you keep some of the profits from Amazon will pay me the profits from the million. So one thing is that great number of people I'm finding, parents and so kids who will read a book about another person, people who are a part of another culture. It's just interesting. It's another interesting thing. So yes, I've had Jewish readers. I've had readers who are not Jewish, and they just think it's cool. First of all, it's an adventurous story. It's a story about kids doing cool things. It's got robots, it's got pirates. Also, it happens to be they'll learn some aspects of a culture that's not their own, and it's just another interesting thing to have in the book. So it's kind of I don't want to market exclusively to people who are part of one group. I want it to be something nice that people can enjoy.
But it's that same mistake that authors make, over and over again.
I wasn't going to say it, but then look, Ellen is saying it.
The mistake is like, no, this book's for everyone. Yes, it is for everyone. But, again, talking about the Melbourne thing, it is a fact that second to Athens, Melbourne has the second highest population of Greek people, right? So, which is no error that I therefore wrote a Greek kids book series.
Sure.
So, I put that up on Amazon, and it hasn't done spectacular on Amazon, but it's doing really well locally, right? Enough to say it was like way worth doing the series. So, because this is where my target market is. Now, there's heaps of other kids who aren't Greek who are reading the series, but they're my target kind of market. And if I took it to Greece, because I can speak Greek, I could sell, I want to say, a few million copies. That's very ambitious, I know. But that's the point. Like, maybe like that, like niching it down into and beginning there, those people who already love, the things that you're talking about, family, Jewish, and they will be like, wow, we've been dying for a series for our own kids.
Or we've been dying for a window into this world.
I mean, there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, the low-hanging fruit, like the let's say the most soon, consumer, the quickest consumers of my books have been Jewish people who just want that character that they can relate to, Jewish kids doing stuff. Why does it always have to be other kids? It can also be Jewish kids too. That's one.
Look at Marty's face. I love your face, Marty.
So I know, I mean, it's a pretty small audience, but those who are interested in families, so you would niche it to, families, people who like to have families, people who sort of like smart kids doing things, or what you'd call the trickster hero, maybe, rather than the brute force beat everybody up hero. So that's a little bit of a wider niche. You know, you're not necessarily going and saying it's for the whole world, because it's not, you know, it's not realistic. But you're still niching it, but a little bit wider than that. That's sort of after you've gotten the low hanging fruit, which is just people who, you know, are dying to see, you know, their own. I don't know,
there's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there.
Sure. Also, now it sounds like like you're gonna owe Elena some commission money. I'm just saying that.
Also, can I just say, I don't know about people in other, you know, like Jewish people in other countries, but the reputation of Jewish people in Melbourne is they're like really well off. So they have money. Right, so they wouldn't even flinch to spend money on amazing things for their kids that have those values, you know, which is in a very expanding world can be really hard, I think, to hold on to some of those, you know, religious values, particularly with the next generation of kids. You know, I find that with my kids, you know, we're Greek Orthodox, we have a bigger spiritual perspective, but giving them, you know, things with those values is tough. So if someone approached me as a parent, you know, I jump on that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's another benefit that I want to provide people with the books. You know, they can find stuff that's consistent with their values and that supports their values. So
so it sounds like we've sent you away with also a list of homework assignments, which is unusual. That's a first for us, so that's good.
Yeah.
Changing and growing. Thank you so much, Nathaniel. It's been
welcome.
really good.
I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, they can go to parrotsadventures.com. That's PERETZ, parrotsadventures.com. That's my website. They can connect on Facebook. They can, I've got a Twitter account as well.
All the links will be in the show notes. All the links will be in the show notes. So that's fantastic. As well as where to follow Nathaniel on Amazon. That's always in the show notes too. So be nice. Follow the authors in our show notes. And, you know, it's always a plus to know that authors are following each other and learning from each other. Thank you again so much. You can find us where, Marty? Do you want to say it this time? Where can people find us? I'll get it wrong. You say it. Okay. www.indiekidlitpodcast.com. You should have it in your little pinned spot on the top of your browser by now, so that you can pop in there every 2 weeks, see the latest episode.
Yeah. And if you haven't had a chance to, you know, rate us, go ahead and do the 5 stars. I mean, I think there are other stars, but obviously the 5 stars is the one.
5 is the best.
Yeah. Very cool. Thanks, you guys.